There are two things that I've always dreamed of. One is being a wife, and the other was being a mom. And both things that I never imagined would be difficult, because I know that they are two things that are of God. About a year after we got married, my husband and I decided to try for a baby. We actually got pregnant pretty quickly, and that was really exciting. But unfortunately, we lost that baby pretty quickly. That was a really hard season for me, but it was actually really fast. It was about 3 months later that we found out that we were pregnant again. This time was exciting but very scary for me. I found myself just filled with crippling anxiety often. It was really hard for me at every doctor's appointment. I was just so fearful that something could be wrong. Weeks went on and things were great. Miracle after miracle happened. We actually found out that it was a girl, which is a miracle in itself because there are no girls on my husband's side. My husband was actually nervous when we started trying because he said, I know you're such a girl and you've always dreamed of having girls, but I'm afraid I'm probably gonna give you a boy. So when we found out she was a girl, I almost fainted actually. I fell backwards. I remember I kept screaming like, God loves me. And he was like, I know he does, because there's no girls on this side of our family. So everyone was so excited. I had already picked out her name, Dorothy, which was, I wanted to name her after his grandmother, which we later found out meant gift from God, which was such a exciting thing when we found that out. Actually, one thing that Dorothy and I shared was the gift of worship. She loved so much every time I would sing. And when I would sing, she would move and dance and dance and dance. One Sunday I sang and it was different that Sunday. I didn't feel her at all. And the doctor had told us that we were in a season where she was growing and that she was going to be tired and not moving, and so just don't be worried about it. Again, this was during COVID, and so my husband wasn't allowed to be with me at first, and I told the doctor, I said, I have a feeling I know what you're about to tell me, and so I was by myself the first time because my husband was at work with the first baby, and so I don't think I could be by myself, and so we love our doctor. He's a godsend, and he snuck him in the back. I'm now telling that. So he was with me, and I remember grabbing his hand, and I was like, I'm scared. And he was like, she's fine, she's okay. And so we went into this back room, and it seemed like forever waiting for the machine to come so that the nurse could look at the baby. And it was at that moment that they confirmed my biggest fear, which was that Dorothy was no longer with us. I remember sitting there in shock, and the only words I could say was, my heart, it was shattered horribly. But God immediately was there. I mean, from the nurses to our doctor, our godson, I mean, it was every little detail. 3 days later, she finally came. It was a beautiful moment. It was the first time that I've ever seen my husband cry. We got to hold her and look at her, but I remember very specifically the words, you can spend as much time with her as you want, but then you just let us know so that we can take her. And I think that was probably the most defining picture of in my life with God, was holding something so precious and having to give it to him and trusting him when it just didn't make sense. It was like, why does my dream have to go? What did I do wrong? You immediately think about all the different things. Grief is just such a powerful emotion. She tore her cord a tiny bit, and I just remember our doctor said, Destree, because he knew how happy she was always dancing, and he was like, she danced her way to heaven. And I'll just never forget that, just that she did, that she was just such a loving, happy baby. And I just remember our doctor grabbing our hands and telling me, you did nothing wrong. God has a plan for this, and you're gonna see his plan, and I have. From that day on, I made a promise to myself, to my husband, and that I would worship Jesus, and no matter what that looked like for us. I knew that this was a thing that the enemy could take from me because she loved when I sang, and so it was a defining moment for me to decide, am I going to allow the enemy to take my worship away in that way, or am I going to worship him even when sometimes I don't want to? And I would often ask myself, what does this look like for somebody who doesn't have Jesus? What does this look like for somebody who misses somebody and is grieving somebody so desperately, but they don't have the hope in him? I remember just picturing her face and saying, Jesus, because of you, I get to see her again. And in that moment, my idea of heaven and my gratitude for Jesus, it like exploded. I mean, I knew what he did for me, but to know that he knew me so well that this was going to be a part of our story, that he loved me enough that there would be a day where I would hold her and I would never have to give her back, just meant so much to me. I mean, I fell in love with Jesus on a completely different level. I will get to see her and know everything about her and what she looks like, and what she sounded like, and what her smile looks like, all the things that I'll always wonder about. And there's gonna be a day where I will dance with her forever. And I'm so grateful for that. The song, Goodness of God, was the last song that I sang, actually, when I was pregnant with Dorothy. We lost her 4 days after that. I remember singing that song that Sunday and just, his goodness, just thinking about the different seasons of my life, and just how good he was. Like, I finally had my dream of a little girl. As God does in true God fashion, that was the first song that I sang again. So, it was the first song I sang when I had her last, and the first song I sang when I didn't have her anymore. We have to ask ourselves, are we willing to just worship him in his goodness and what that looks like, or are we willing to worship him no matter what that looks like? Every time I sing that, it's a very emotional song for me, just because I feel myself through the different seasons. I've sang that song when I was just so in love and thinking he was so good, and I've sang that song in some of the darkest times of my life. Doesn't always look the way we want it to, but that because of his goodness, that he will carry us through that and give us the strength to do that. We actually found out a few days after Dorothy's first birthday that we were pregnant. God showed himself like he always does, and he ended up actually blessing us with not just one baby, but with 2 babies, and they are both girls. This is Dolly, and this is Della. And then one night I was looking up Dorothy's name. I saw that the name Dolly is the sister name to Dorothy, which also means gift of God. So that's kind of our little family joke, is that God blessed us with 2. She's our additional unexpected blessing. And we just say, from Isaiah 61, where God will bless you with a double portion. And this is just our constant reminder that he is faithful. His story doesn't always make sense, but he's good and he has a plan. So, yeah, say hi. Say hey. You want to say hey?